Okay, because I keep thinking about this and then forgetting until after the fact, I'm going to create a very brief stub here on the question of psychogeography, which I do want to come back to. So psychogeography, of course, is intimately linked to surrealists and the Dadaists and Guy Debord and the Situationists. Okay, if you want to sort of situate it historically. When we get talking about it, texts that I will get talking about are there's a couple of texts by Alan Moore. So one is his absolute masterpiece graphic novel From Hell, which is about the Jack the Ripper killings, but contains a chapter that really probably was one of my first, well, if not, no, that's not true because I'd encountered it before, but it was a very powerful no, it wasn't an introduction. It was a very powerful experience I had with the concept of psychogeography as the character creates a kind of Psychogeography of London. I don't want to say too much more because that book should just be read. I am talking about the graphic novel. I'm talking about the comic book. I'm not talking about the movie. These two things are the Johnny Depp film. They're pretty far apart. I'm not sure I would recommend that Johnny Depp film, to be perfectly honest, and certainly not as an adaptation of the original work. But the comic is an amazing experience, very much well worth reading. So it has an interesting take on psychogeography. There is additionally Alan Moore's sort of less discussed, very large novel, Jerusalem, which is not about Jerusalem, primarily speaking, but it is also heavily psychogeographic in nature. Another thing that I will mention is there is a book which is published about sort of walks in Toronto called Stroll, which I've used sort of for my own thinking in this area. I've done some psychogeographic stuff in my own writing. I wrote a book called St. George, which was about St. George Station, but also, of course, about St. George as the dragon slayer and a bunch of other things. It was very tied in with lots of things. I'm not sure that the book totally worked, but I ended up doing lots of psychogeographical reading in the process. And also, the one that often comes to my mind is Michael Ondaatje, The Skin of the Lion, in The Skin of the Lion, which has to do, among other things, with the construction of the Bloor Street viaduct, right? The enormous bridge that crosses over the Don. So those are sort of some stub references, let's say that. I am going to discuss this stuff at greater length, as indeed I have a desire to discuss many things at greater length. But I did see on the discussion board that, right, that was sort of a specific question and I kept meaning to do it and I haven't done it and I still haven't done it. But if you want to get started on sort of the reading side of things, you definitely can. And there's some links to the depth psych stuff that I will provide more thoroughly, but those are sort of interesting texts to point to when you're talking about the ideas around psychogeography. Okay, so good. Stub.